And there's still nobody on the line calling in, anything like that? And there's really nothing, there's really not much on the agenda that would
Say that.
require public comment, but then there's the three applicants who have not been interviewed. I would imagine they will be calling in. They're not on the line yet.
There is one possibly two in the waiting room.
There's two right now. Kathy and Elizabeth, and I think Jesse.
Okay, good. Then we're all good. And then the zoning board guy has already been interviewed, so I don't believe he was planning on phoning in, but he may.
Hey, John.
Hello, everybody.
Is Joe in the waiting room?
No.
Do not see him.
Okay.
Carrie, I have 7 o'clock.
Okay, I will be right there. Let's get this started. Welcome, everybody. It is Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. This is the regularly scheduled Warren Town Council meeting. If everybody would stand up and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag
of the
United States of America,
and to the republic
For which it stands.
stands
under
one
God,
nation,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Justice for all.
Right. Thank you. As of the right before the start of the meeting, there were no public comments or anything received by email, according to Clerk Speroni. Is that still true?
Yes.
Okay. The first item on the budget is on the agenda is the approval of the 2021-22 preliminary budget. Because we've had 2 public budget workshops so far and tentatively approved pending further information, We do have a number that we can acknowledge here publicly, vote on if we need to, but it's all just kind of numbers plugged in places to kind of get us to that next point, which will be who knows when. So if somebody would like to make a motion to tentatively approve, the number I have is $16,236,604. Is that what the number that we are currently working with? Manager Michaud?
I would just, I think that's fine if you'd like to do that, but I would not phrase it as a preliminary approval, because then that triggers the advertising requirements. So what I would ask, Attorney DeSisto is not on the line yet. He will be very shortly. So I would ask that as far as the timeline for approving that preliminary budget, I would ask you to postpone that discussion until he gets on the line, if that's
Okay,
possible.
so with that subsequent agenda item that is
Madam Chair.
later on with the under new business 1,
Madam President,
that just,
if I may.
yes, Mr.
Well,
Ferrera?
my recommendation would actually take, it's okay to vote on this thing as it's a preliminary budget vote, and it's actually required under the charter to take this vote, and at any time we can go back and change it.
Okay. My understanding as of the last night's discussion and previous discussions was that this number that we have has been characterized and put forward as tentative pending further information anyway. So it's not as though we are committing ourselves to this. So if the word preliminary should be in there, okay, in that motion, or if it doesn't, if we should say tentative instead.
Sure, you can put some reservation on it, but the vote by charter has to be done tonight. And again, it's a preliminary budget, therefore, anytime we can go back and amend it.
All right, and then further on in this evening's agenda, we will have that discussion about possibly pushing out the schedule for the budget process. So is that number in agreement with where we ended up last night?
You can repeat that number?
Manager Michaud, did you have that what I said earlier? You look like you're looking.
16,236,604.
That's what
Okay, that's what I had said. So do we have a motion to tentatively approve that pending further information?
I'll make that motion that we approve the preliminary budget in the amount of $16,236,604.
Am I late?
Oh, Joe, do you have a question?
Yeah, am I late? Did we already start?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
so that's the total for operating, just to be clear. That doesn't include the capital.
Okay, so that's operating. So we have a motion to approve that preliminary number. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Heckert, a second by Councilman Kalenda on that figure of 16,236,604. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. And the capital amount?
The capital amount was $1,504,430.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to tentatively approve the $1,504,430 for our capital budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Is that enough with that budget conversation for right now? I think so. All right, so next we have appointments. This evening, we need to vote on the appointment of the new Warren Housing Authority Resident Commissioner. Do we have Antone Damaso of 22 Libby Lane with us? Okay, well, with the recommendation and the vote of the folks at the Housing Authority and this, we have this candidate, Antone Damaso. Do we have a motion to approve his appointment?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by DePasquale, a second by Hanley to appoint the new Warren Housing Authority Resident Commissioner, Antone Damaso. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All righty. On to interviews. So we have 2 applicants for 2 positions on the Economic Development Board. I skipped over Conservation Commission. There is 1 board or 1 position open there, but no applicants. The first applicant for the Economic Development Board is Jesse Lee Bowen of 341 Child Street. Is Jesse on the phone with us?
Yes, we're here.
We are here. So we will speak to Jesse first, assuming that we is you and Catherine.
Yes. You guessed
Okay.
correctly. Yes, we're sharing our Zoom.
All right, this is a first. All right, so Mr. Bowen, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about why you want to apply for the Economic Development Board. What's something new you think you can bring to this board that doesn't already exist?
Well, knowing very little about the board as itself, so I don't know exactly what new I will bring based off of what you have, but I will tell you a little bit about myself. I'm very interested, and my wife as well, in being a part of the community. We moved to Warren 4.5 years ago. We plan on staying here for a very long time. We live on the corner of Child Street. You've seen the yellow house. And we think it's important to be a part of the community. And I've always wanted to give a little more to the community. And I believe that being part of the Economic Board will be a good outlet for my energy. So I'm humble, I'm teachable, and my wife is laughing at me when I say that, but it's true. And as far as what new I could bring, like I said, I really don't know what you guys have, to be honest with you, but I would be new if that's the definition we're working with.
All right, I have a question. So on your application, you've been in several executive positions that require decision-making, and you mentioned your own company. What is your own company?
So Speedy Renewal is a general contracting company, and we focus mainly on restoration and remodeling. And I focus primarily upon century homes that the dimensional lumber is not available anymore. And maybe you're familiar with the term, but 100 years ago that a 2x4 was actually 2x4. It's not anymore. So yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do. And then my wife also recently opened a business, pest control here. Actually just got her business license today. So I will probably be taking a little bit of a recess from what I'm doing to help her develop her business.
All righty, any questions from the council?
You mentioned your yellow house. Why should I know your yellow house?
Because it's on the corner. Everybody sees it.
The corner of what?
Child
in
in
Arlington.
Yeah, see?
Sorry. That was funny. Who was that?
All right. I guess I'm somebody who I just drove by it twice today. I didn't know. But I believe it's there.
It's
So
there. It's still there.
I don't have any further questions. I mean, you're coming in new to the board with an open mind, and that's really all it takes. A motion to approve.
Carrie, I just have a couple before, and I will gladly second it. Were you serving on any other boards in any of the communities before you came to Warren?
No,
Was that a no?
this is my first time. First time.
Okay, yeah, and like Carrie said, I mean, that kind of jumped off the page too. You have been in several executive positions.
Sure, I can extrapolate if you want.
Yeah, now's not the time to be humble. Go ahead and give it to us. What do you got?
Absolutely. So, when I was a young man, I was part of a sales team. I was in charge of almost 150 sales reps, direct sales reps. They went door to door and business to business for different companies such as Verizon, SBC, Windstream, which is it's the largest rural telecom company. And we basically were the harbingers of fiber optic internet when I was a young man. And every day I had to make decisions, whether it was hiring, firing, deployment, budgets, even something as simple as territory and client relations, and even running my own business. We can move forward from that. Running my own business, I have to make executive level decisions every single day. I was a call center manager for a travel company until obviously coronavirus. So that was a day-to-day running of the business, whether it was advertising budget, whether it was again a hiring and firing type of situation, training, online advertising, all that stuff. Every day I had to deal with it. Yes.
Right, perfect. Thank you. I will second Councilman DePasquale's motion for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second to appoint Jesse Lee Bowen to the Economic Development Board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Welcome.
opposed?
Thank you.
Ayes have it.
And the manager can use all his expertise in telecommunications to upgrade our Wi-Fi in the building.
Yes. Now, the next applicant we have, I understand, and here is right next to you, is Catherine Ablaski.
Abishai, yes. How are you?
Abishai?
Yes,
Hi,
ma'am.
well, now, Catherine, you are currently serving on the Voluntary Historic District Committee?
Yes, I'm an alternate, and I think it's been, gosh, Bob would know, probably 2 years.
2 years?
Maybe, yeah, 2 years.
All righty. And so you feel like your time is enough to participate on both of those boards? As far as I understand from our solicitor, there's no conflict in holding positions on both the WVHDC and the EDB. Am I correct, Mr. DeSisto?
Yes, as long as Bob doesn't kick me out. I've actually learned a lot just being as an alternate on that board, just the procedures and how things are done, and a lot about construction and the homes, the old homes and whatnot in the historic district. So, you know, when we moved here 4 years ago and we bought this house, I really wanted to buy a home in the historic district, but unfortunately they're not up for sale very often. So we wanted to buy another one, but.
To answer your question, Madam President, for these two particular committees, the answer is yes, you can.
Okay. Does anybody, any member of the council have questions for the applicant?
I do have a question, Madam President. Ms. Ablaski, this is Bran Heckert. Just wondering about your time is being split between these two boards. You feel like you have the time to dedicate to two boards? Because there's there's can be considerable amount of work put in if you're doing it right.
Well, as long as the meeting times though aren't conflicting, I would think that I would have enough time.
Mr. Hecker, the Economic Development Board meets in the morning typically, and the other committees meet in the evening.
So I actually just, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I certainly understand that the meetings are held at different times, but it's the prep for meetings and the that has to happen. And that's, it's a time commitment. If you're doing it, again, if you're doing it right, you're doing work outside of the meeting, not just at the meeting. So.
Yes, I understand.
Yep. So you feel like you have the time to.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with my time management.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint, I'm going to say it wrong again, Catherine Oblaski.
Oblashai, but Oblaski works.
Yeah, I want to hit that CH hard. Okay, to the Economic Development Board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you both very much.
Thank you so much, folks. I'm excited. Thank you.
Good night. All righty. Next, we have applicant for the Tree Commission, Elizabeth Lowe Andradis. Is Ms. Andradis on the phone with us?
She's in.
In the room?
Yep, she's in the room. She needs to unmute herself.
Unmute.
Can you hear me?
There you
We
go.
can hear you.
Hi.
Good evening. How are you?
Great.
You could just yell out the window and I'd hear you. Why don't you let us know why it is you want to serve on the Tree Commission and what you'd like, maybe something you'd like to see going on with trees in the community.
Sure. So I've lived on Water Street for about 25 years. And in the past 5 or 6 years, there's been a lot of changes on the street for the good. But I was, my interest in the tree committee was sparked when there were a lot of tree removals and replantings when we had all the road works. So I got involved about 6 months ago, and I've been participating as a friend of trees. So I attend the meetings and participate in the conversations, but I'm not able to vote on any of the actions. One of the initiatives that I'm particularly interested in is the significant tree project to encourage people, private citizens who have significant trees on their private property to kind of register them and protect them. And that was kind of, there was a copper beech tree on the Eamon J. Meals property on Miller Street that was cut down to make way for a driveway. And that kind of sparked this idea to register trees and try to protect them.
Well, you're speaking to me when you express your dismay when that happened, and I'm excited to hear of your goals of working towards that significant tree registry. Any questions from the council?
Motion to appoint.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Elizabeth Lowe Andradis to the Tree Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? You're appointed. Thank you so much.
Yay, thanks so much.
Yay.
Well.
All right, moving on. So we have the Zoning Board of Review alternate position. We had previously interviewed Matthew Atwood. There are no other applicants at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve, Madam President.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
So we have a motion and a second to appoint Matthew Atwood as the alternate on the Zoning Board of Review. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. All righty. Next, we have the acceptance of minutes. We have January 26th Town Council Legislation Workshop. Has everybody reviewed the minutes?
Some hefty reading there.
So, I'll make a motion. We approve the January 26th legislative workshop minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we need a motion to accept the February 9 minutes. That was the regular council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And finally, the acceptance of the February 24 Town Council BCWA Pair Workshop.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All righty. Moving on. We have the consent agenda, P1 and P2. Does anybody have any questions on those? I have just one. None?
You want to
Okay.
pull that one separate, Kerry?
I just have a question. If Mr. Malik is fine with both of these commercial waste permits, I'm just curious as to Jade Engineered Plastics. They're going to be bringing waste from their enormous site to the town transfer station. That just seems a little puzzling to me that they don't have, that they're not disposing of their own stuff on site. And I'm just curious about that. Mr. Malik?
They didn't say in their application what they were going to dump. I mean, out of respect to yourself, I can check out tomorrow before we give the approval and see what they plan on dumping over here at the transfer station.
Okay, I mean, does that spark your curiosity at all? Just because they do have that huge site with dumpsters and everything, I just don't know what they would be bringing, or if that's just something, you know, industry standard to also have access to the local dump.
I agree with you. I'm not sure what they're going to dump, so I want to be fair to them and you. The only thing I can say is there's plenty of businesses out there that have a name, John Doe. We don't know what they're going to dump until they get there to the landfill. So, I mean, if you'd like I said, I could stop by tomorrow and make sure. It might be just cardboard they're going to dump. We got businesses that just get this permit to just dump cardboard for free at our transfer station. So I can find out tomorrow for you. And if you'd like, I'm hoping the council probably could make it with the recommendation. What I understand what they're going to dump. And if I think they're on board what they're going to dump, their cardboard or whatever, we give approval so they can start dumping right away.
I'm good with that. Is there a particular language, Mr. DeSisto, we should use for that?
For that motion, I think what you need to do is continue the matter to your next town council meeting, pending information on the waste to be deposited in the transfer station.
You don't want to make it contingent on the DPW director's approval?
Then the motion would, if that's the case, the motion would be to delegate approval to the DPW director, pending information on the waste to be deposited at the transfer station.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
All right. So the petitions, we do need to then pull out the P2 Jade Engineering Plastics. We need a motion to delegate approval of that commercial waste permit to the DPW director, pending information on what they're going to be using the transfer station for.
Want me to make another motion?
No, you just say you make that motion.
He did. Yeah, he just did.
Okay, and the second?
I'll second
that.
Ms. Speroni, do you have that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Now, we still need to approve P1 if I'm correct now.
P1 and the
what
top of
about-
P2.
And P2.
Yeah.
The State Line Boat Works.
Correct, yep. I'll make a motion. We pass the rest of the consent agenda, except for the Jade Engineering, the waste permit for Jade Engineered Plastics, as that is pending DPW approval.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Next, we have correspondence. There are, how many items? There are 11 items in correspondence. There are quite a few resolutions. And does anybody have anything they would like to pull for discussion?
Is anybody interested in C10?
It's pretty clearly stated. Is there something you'd like to discuss? We can pull that.
Just as long as everyone's clear with it.
For anybody listening, there is a letter from the PRISM Board President regarding recent program leadership developments. So the former leader of PRISM has retired, and there are new members who are in the leadership positions there.
Madam President,
Yes.
I think more important than their leadership program is our relationship with PRISM, and if it's where we want to be right now. Over the years, we've certainly struggled with PRISM on a number of different levels, and I haven't heard an update as to where we're at and how much control we have, the control we wanted to have. So those are, I think those are issues for more discussion, not maybe at this point, obviously, but those are things I would like to delve into.
Madam President, I can address that.
Yes, you may, Mr. Planner.
Okay. Both Lieutenant Borges and I have been trained and have software where we can dim the lights. We have been trained on their dashboard system on the computer, so we have the functionality that we were lacking before. I would say since Mr. Woodbury and his team have taken over, they're much more responsive than it had been previously. When residents are calling for service, I mean, they're getting out there within, a day or 2 days. So I think I'm comfortable that we're at a place that we wanted to be a year ago where we weren't. I mean, I've got an app on my phone that I can go and adjust streetlights all over town. I can do it right now from my computer if I wanted to. So yeah, I think we're at a good spot right now.
so you're happy with it, Bob? Unlike
Yeah. Yep.
the challenges we
So-
had a year and a half ago? Okay.
Yes.
But just as a follow-up, and again, this might be something that is beyond this conversation, but what's the policy for a request to dim lights, say at a specific pole from a specific resident? I mean, do we have any procedures for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been through my office and it continues to be that. And, we forward those requests to PRISM and they respond, and they've got somebody else running their service desk now who's very responsive. So I think that practice of people contacting me can continue. If we need to reinforce that on the website, we can put something on there to, let people know that procedure is still in place.
I think that would be important because I've had residents approach me and ask me about the brightness of the lights outside of their bedroom and say it's melting the paint off their house, and can we do anything about it? So I think it would be important if somehow residents knew that there was a process for them to speak with you about it, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, the council president and the manager and I spoke yesterday. I'm going to bring back my around town article in the paper. So I'll, next week I'll have something in there that people can contact me. We'll put something on the website, but my goal is to at least start to do that 2 times a month now, just for bits of information such as that, so people are aware.
Great. I think that's very important. Thank you.
Alrighty, is there anything else on correspondence that anybody would like to pull for discussion? Alrighty, hearing nothing, we can move on to old business. Discussion and action regarding the extension and or amendment of the town's declaration of state of emergency. Solicitor DeSisto, what say you here?
Well, actually, this month I'm going to recommend it be extended. I'm going to tell you why. The next item on the agenda is the resolution amending the budget approval schedule, which you are allowed to do during emergency periods by a new state statute. And in this instance, I just think it's prudent because of the budgeting uncertainties for the upcoming fiscal year, based upon the issues that the regional school district has, as well as the potential for getting funds in from the federal government. We just don't know how much and when. So in this instance, based on that state statute, I'm going to recommend that you do pass the approve the declaration of emergency for this time for budgeting purposes.
Motion to approve.
I have a question for the solicitor.
Question from BP Hanley.
Tony, because that's a state statute and we're under a state of emergency, wouldn't we still be able to proceed under that law with the governor's state of emergency to amend the charter rules?
John, what I'm worried about is that your budget process is going to go through the next couple months. And I don't know that, but I worry about that. It keeps me up at night. And frankly, it's being driven by Kate with her dire emails. My concern is that the new governor, McKee, is going to lift the state of emergency prior to these budgetary issues being resolved. That's why I'm recommending you keep it in place. It might be belt and suspenders, but I think it's prudent.
And a
Alrighty.
follow-up question, if I may, Madam President.
You may.
Tony, so if he was to lift the state of the emergency order, couldn't he just issue an executive order to continue the budget process?
He could, yes. But I prefer to keep this in place in case that doesn't happen. Now, Governor McKee has a strong municipal background, and he's well aware of the issues facing municipalities in budgeting. So this might all be, something that is being overly prudent. But given the case, I just think it's a good idea to keep it in place. I worry about it, and I just think we need it.
Okay.
For budget.
I have a question, Madam President.
Go ahead, Mr. Councilman, what's your name? Heckert.
Thank you. The actual document wasn't in my package for some reason. So can we identify which number this is? Are we up to 12?
It would be 14th, and it was in my packet under solicitor, the 14th.
Okay, that's why I didn't see it, because so this is the 14th. Okay, well,
yes.
I'd just like to identify that we're approving the 14th.
And it will go to April 9th.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilman DePasquale to extend the state of emergency or the declaration of state of emergency. Was there a second?
I did.
Councilman Heckert has the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed. Opposed.
Okay, there was a delay and it sounded like somebody else said it and I was like, wait, John, say it. That was you. Okay.
That was me.
So, thank you. Consistency. NB1 is discussion and action regarding resolution to amend the budget approval schedule. So back to the solicitor. I think you all have a copy of a hard copy as well. One was, a document was emailed earlier today of the existing budget. What are your recommendations, or what are our options here as far as moving forward with this process and giving ourselves the best attempt at passing something that's real? Should we go 30 days? Just keep going 30-day extend, 30-day extend? What are your recommendations?
Is that to Anthony?
Yes, that's to Anthony, who's,
Well, under section 45-2-3.2 of the general laws, specifically subsection B, you have the ability to do that, and you can move the target dates that are set forth in the charter. You have great flexibility here, Madam President, and members of the council. So to me, if you could set some outer limits by resolution, I think that's prudent on this. Now, I know Kate has a suggested schedule. That can also be amended if circumstances change. So to me, if you're going to adjust the budget schedule, the whole thing would have to be adjusted. And I think that's what you need to be looking at now.
okay. So Manager Michaud, can you talk to us about specific dates you had in mind or a pathway?
Sure, I'm gonna screen share for a second, if that's okay with everybody.
Please.
Okay, so I reworked the existing budget to try to push everything out till at least after the JFC meeting, where the second JFC meeting is March 25th. So I figured we're definitely not going to have any solid numbers before then. So I pushed council approval of the preliminary budget. My recommendation would be to hold a special meeting on March 29th. It could be a brief meeting if there's no substantive changes, but it could also, we may need to go back and make substantive changes depending on what happens with the school budget. And hopefully by that time, we would also have some idea about federal funds, both for ourselves and for the school department. So changing that date causes a waterfall of date changes down the road. That would set up the due date for petitions would move to April 9th, which is still before the charter date. Because of the requirements to advertise after the preliminary budget and to get approval from the state, the third public workshop, which is only required if there's petitions filed, would have to be pushed to April 29th. And that's the one date that I could not make work within the charter guidelines. So that would push that date past the third Monday in April. You would still, that same evening, April 29th, you would be able to consider approval of final budget, which is within the charter requirement. Petitions for the referendum would push to May 6th. The petitions have to be approved ASAP, and then it's 10 days after that is the return of the petitions from the clerk. 4 days after that, the petitions are certified and transmitted to the council. So those dates are all dependent on the petition submission, if there are any. And then for the final portions of this budget schedule, I did not attempt to put a date to a referendum if there is a referendum proposed by the taxpayers, because we don't know what the form of that referendum would be. So typically it's a one-day voting event where people come to town hall and they vote on a referendum. Due to the current state of affairs, I don't know if the state would require us to also have a mail ballot option, which would significantly change the procedure that we usually have for referendums. And we would have to, at that point, schedule that process once we know what that process is. And then final budget, if there's a referendum, the final budget date would definitely be pushed out. If there is not a referendum, then the final budget could follow close to schedule. So that's my attempt. The big caveat is that if the JFC is not able to approve a budget by March 25th, then I would propose obviously changing this schedule again.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't have any better ideas myself looking at this. This probably is as good, if not better than what anybody else would come up with. And a motion to make this our new sort of working schedule for
I'll
the
make a
budget
motion.
process.
I'll make,
But
I'll make,
then, and also include, depending on the passage of the school budget.
okay, I will make a motion to amend the budget schedule as recommended or as presented by the town manager.
Second,
That should cover it. Actually, I have a question. Anthony, if, like Kate said, if we have to, the March 25th, we don't have any regular council meetings before that. If we can't make that date, would we have to have a special meeting and to amend it again?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I think I remember Mr. DeSisto saying at our last meeting that we could actually push this date quite a bit further out if we had to. Not that we want to do that, but we have that option if things get backed up. The final approval of the budget.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, just so we have some leeway, even if this schedule that we're voting on now, the amended schedule doesn't hold up, we still have leeway. So just, yeah. Thank you.
You do, under the statute, you have wide discretion.
Okay.
All righty. So we have a motion from Vice President Hanley to accept the proposed budget schedule as delivered by Manager Michaud. Was there a second?
yes, I second it.
And Kalenda has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All righty. Well, thank you. Next, we have solicitor discussion and action regarding town manager's contract. Have you all read that document as was communicated to us earlier? Are
Correct.
there
Yes.
any questions or issues? And I guess we are going to, without any, there are no questions or concerns with it, approving this.
Motion to approve.
Second,
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor of approving the town manager's new contract?
aye.
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 Any opposed? You have a
Okay,
contract.
Thank you.
Congratulations, thanks, Kate.
Yes, Solicitor DeSisto.
Yeah, I beg your pardon. I'm going, the document is now a public document. So I will forward that along to Sandy. Of course, it has to be executed, and then Sandy should get an executed copy for the town. Kate should get an executed copy for herself, and if the public asks for it, they can take a look at the terms.
Very good.
Thank you.
Next, Finance Director, Statement of Revenue and Expenditures. Again, we all received the digital copy of that. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Chan?
Not.
Ms. Chan, do you have anything you would like to tell us about the current report?
Through February, we are still in good shape, and I want to let you know that we received the state CRF fund fully. So that brings us a little bit higher than expected. And most departments are still under the anticipated percentage. So as we move closer to the end of the year, I am expecting it to pick up. So we will stay monitor.
All right. Any other questions or any questions still? None? Thank you very much. Moving on to police chief. The first item is discussion and action and approval for purchase of a 2021 animal control pickup truck and equipment for the Warren Police Department in the amount of $40,629.85 pursuant to Mass Master Price Agreement, Plymouth County Municipal Vehicle Bid from CMG Colonial Municipal Group to be funded out of allocated capital account number 01-020-210030. So, Chief Borges.
Good evening, Madam President.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Hey, I just have a couple real quick question. Hey, Chief,
Yes,
we're going into a four-wheel drive vehicle instead of traditional van?
yes. Some further discussion with the animal control. We figure going to a pickup truck. In the back seat, we would turn that into the cage for the alive animals. And then in the back, we would throw, of course, the deceased animals and the equipment. One of the issues with the van right now, it's an open cab. So in the summertime and when it's very hot, doesn't smell very good back there when you have a deceased animal.
No, actually, Chief, I think this is the way of the future. A lot of these animal control vehicles are going into these four-wheel drives. So keeping up with the times, I think this is a good idea. So,
It's actually cheaper than the van.
I'm sorry?
It's actually $2,000 cheaper than the van that we
Oh,
have.
is it? Oh, well, hey.
Good.
Perfect. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
All righty. So do we have a motion to approve this purchase?
It was.
Yeah, Joe and I seconded it.
All righty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations on the new truck. And second, discussion and action, permission to sign an agreement with Axon Enterprise, Inc., sole source, to purchase 8 tasers, 24 holsters, and all equipment required to train members of the department. 5-year agreement, $6,500 per year for a total cost of $32,499.95. Financial 2021 payment out of existing department funds. So we also, this was also part of our budget discussion the other night as well.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. All righty.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Planning and community development. Number 1 is correspondence, geospatial analysis of sea level rise in Warren, Rhode Island. Planner Rulli submitted to us a really interesting document. If you've even read just the first executive summary, some pretty interesting, unpleasant, reality-driven information here. Did you want to say something about it, Mr. Rulli?
Yeah, I wanted to share it with the members. We were fortunate enough to have a grad student from URI through the Coastal Institute and our long relationship working with them that was able to spend the last semester putting these maps together. As we've talked about, potential property buyouts and sea level rise and vulnerability to sea level rise, these maps will become critically important. We're already using them in our conversations with DOT with respect to the ongoing TIP. I think that some of the information in there, particularly with respect to loss, property loss, repetitive loss, is going to have an impact on the town in the future, but it helps us inform our decisions moving forward. But one of the things that typically is looked at as 50 and 100-year scenarios. And, I asked Patrick to focus on a shorter time frame because, I mean, in the real world, these things are going to happen. And if people think they're 50 and 100 years out, they don't tend to take them as seriously. So I think it's just a really valuable resource. We're incorporating this as part of our state required hazard and flood mitigation plan. It will be an appendix, which I think is really going to be outstanding in comparison. That I don't think any other community has this level of mapping. And I would just ask that the council agree to issue to Patrick some type of certificate of appreciation for the work that he's done. I think this is, a tool that we're going to continue to use moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, put that on the next agenda and we can, I'm happy to do that. Any questions for Mr. Rulli?
I do have a question for the planner. This is a really, sobering document. A lot of stuff in here. I spent the last week studying it. But I understand a 1-year storm and a 25-year storm and a 100-year storm. I mean, obviously the numbers reflect, and not always exactly, but what determines the sea level rise, and how do we know what sea level rise we're going to get and when we're going to get it? And are there any numbers associated with dates or anything like that on those sea level rises?
I mean, there's really, there's no hard, fast number. I mean, we get conflicting information from FEMA versus NOAA. Some of it historically is calculated off of a buoy in Newport Harbor and what they've seen, historically over the last 50, 60 years. They're projections. So, I mean, there's no, definitive, this is going to happen in 2023. But based on the best available information, we know within a window of time close to 2023, these are the impacts that we're going to see. And, unfortunately, with sea level rise, it's not, if you have a hurricane, you have a tornado, you have wildfires, you can see instantaneously what the impacts of that are. But if you're talking about 6 inches of sea level rise over a 10-year period, it's hard for people to imagine what that is. But so this mapping helps us because, it actually does an overlay in terms of showing the areas of impact and what the depth of the water can be. We already know that on Market Street at Mills Park, not just on a king tide, we have flooding issues. But that's why I asked that, lenders look at 40-year mortgages. No one stays in a mortgage for 40 years. I think it's important for us to focus on what 10, 15, and 25 years looks like, because that is going to be a real impact, and that's going to happen sooner than later. Not to give you an ambiguous answer.
No, that makes sense. So, but even at the lesser of the sea level rise, even 1 foot is a pretty significant impact. I'd hate to see a 10-foot. The 10-foot would be all underwater. But it's nevertheless, it's a great tool for us to look at our exposure, so to speak.
I think it's important. I mean, our average elevation in town is 7 feet above sea level. So if we get to a 10-foot, we're making friends with Noah and his boat people. But, I think one of the things that the manager and I have talked with DOT about is that when you look at Child Street and Market Street, those are our evacuation routes, and they're, completely inundated, under these scenarios. So, it's something that we have to look at, long term, because we have members of our population that don't have cars, that are dependent on public transportation, and if all of our evacuation routes are going to be flooded, that creates its own set of problems. So I think it's a very valuable tool for us moving forward.
I agree. Thank you.
Great. And next we have correspondence, Metacom Avenue Special Revitalization District, another heavy document.
I just wanted we had a public meeting or special meeting 2 weeks ago. Some members of the council were able to participate. I just wanted you to have what we shared with the public. I'm happy to answer any questions about it, but I just wanted you to see what the presentation was.
What is would be the timeline to implementing and, getting to that point where there would be council approval to move forward with a plan like this?
My goal is to have a zoning amendment for you to consider in May. I believe it has to have 2 hearings. That zoning amendment will include design guidelines that will relate back to form-based code. And I think everyone is sitting back saying, okay, you get these zoning amendments approved, then we'll start and believe that this is serious. So the planning board has taken it up. We had a meeting last week. I have formed a resident advisory working group to assist with the form-based code. We'll continue to meet on a monthly basis. The planning board is digging into the form-based code. So my goal is to have something before you in May and have something adopted by June.
Very good. Any questions for the planner?
Good job, Bob.
Thank you. Finally, update on the Warren Gateway project. Anything to report there?
Unfortunately, we haven't had any significant forward progress since the last meeting. In reviewing what our memorandum of understanding is, there are certain benchmarks that I'm not comfortable that have been met, but we have some notice requirements. So what I would suggest, and I will confer with the solicitor, is if we haven't made any significant forward progress by April, then I might request that we discuss this in executive session to see what our options are.
Good idea. All right. Any questions for the planner before we move on to the tax assessor? Hearing none, Mr. Leadham, good evening.
Good evening.
So item 1 is discussion and action regarding 2 proposed bills. So you are looking for support or just bringing to our attention these 2 bills regarding date of assessment and valuation of land under the commercial solar farms renewable energy. Do you want to just, I think you've talked about these before, but just give a quick synopsis.
Sure.
On them
So,
both.
yeah, so thank you. There's so many bills going in front of legislators this year. But 2 I wanted to bring to your attention. 1 carried over from last year, and that's the first on the agenda. It's regarding the date of assessment. What this act basically, a summary of this act would authorize tax assessors in the cities and towns to use the last statutory update or revaluation as the assessed value upon which we levy taxes. And basically the date of assessment of all real estate would be the date of the last full or statistical reval. It's always been the normal practice, and assessors, would and continue to value real estate as of the date of the last revaluation. So how this kind of came up as new legislation is during a ruling a couple years ago. It was the Bournemouth versus Portsmouth. During a down economy, the court found that there was these conflicting statutes that cause ambiguity regarding the date of assessment. There's about 3 key statutes that, some of them state that the date of assessment should be the last reval, and some state it should be as of December 31st in each year. So the decision was made mainly on the basis of that there's this conflicting language, and anytime there's this conflicting language, they should decide in favor of the taxpayer. So this was brought mainly to clear up and just come to one date of assessment, which would be the date of the last reval. Assessors are required by law to use that reval date for 3 years. And if we allow property owners, especially, these large commercial properties, to use the value of every year, if we turn into a down economy, we're going to be at, in a vulnerable situation.
Mhm.
So I'm looking for the support. I think I was very surprised that this didn't get passed last year. I thought it was a no-brainer. It's, in the explanation of the case of the Balmouth case, it's, the courts state that it's clearly, there's this conflicting language. You would think that the General Assembly would want to, clear that up, come up with one date of assessment that we can all use, and that way it's equitable on all the properties.
Madam President, if I may.
You may.
And I agree with Chris on this. It wreaks havoc with the lawsuits. When someone appeals their tax assessment, they will do it for the 3 years in the cycle. And to have the values change wreaks havoc with the case. For years, as solicitors, we managed to hold off this idea that you could take advantage of a down market with your valuation, particularly since if it was a rising market, the courts would reject that. So I think it's appropriate for Chris to bring this up. And if the council is to take action on this, the action would be to, pass one of these resolutions in support of this bill, forward it to the General Assembly as well as the legislative delegation.
Make a motion to create a resolution in support of House Bill 5407 regarding the date of assessment. Warren Council is in support.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. So House Bill 5407 and Senate Bill 0115. It's important to get both of those in there, Mr. Leadham?
I believe so. I think it went up for first discussion just recently. So if it goes to I believe it's set up to go to the Senate soon. So I think that would be important, yes.
Alrighty. So amending that motion to reflect the Senate bill as well. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. And that drafting that resolution that we voted in support of it, can that be written up and I can sign it, or does that have to come back to us next month? Isn't time of the essence?
Time is of the essence, and with the approval herein, I think it's by implication you can sign it and send it up.
Okay. Next is the House Bill 5634.
Yeah, so this is, there's no companion bill as of yet, so nothing on the Senate that we know of. Hopefully it'll just stop in its tracks, but this is basically an act that would require cities and towns to assess renewable energy resources to be taxed as tangible property, and then the real property on which the renewable energy sources are located shall not be reclassified, revalued, or reassessed, except for farmland, which would bring it back to the predated farmland classification. So it's basically taking, and I thought this was important to Warren because of the solar farms that are coming to play. To use the Black Horse Farm, for example, that sits on farmland, 10 acres of it that the solar farm, would be on. That would restrict us to valuing that commercial, which should be commercial land now, because it does become a commercial property. It's an income producing property. And we'd have to assess it at a much lower value. The only property that the Rhode Island general law allows us to assess not at market value is farm, forest, and open space. And I believe that law was, brought or passed to, help farmland, help building, developments, onto this farmland, not to, basically, allow commercial income producing properties to benefit from that program. So, in terms of this property, but I'm sure it's going to be popping up in, within Warren and other towns, is Black Horse Farm and nothing against Black Horse, and I'm not singling this one out, but to give you an example, they don't own that land. They're leasing 10 acres of it to house this solar farm. It's a 25-year lease. They pay a good amount of rent to the property owner, who's responsible, for the taxes, but Black Horse winds up paying the difference of any increase in taxes. So it's clearly, this property clearly becomes an income producing property. If someone was to purchase this property or any other property where these 25-year plus agreements are in place, they're purchasing that property for that income stream. They're going to say, okay, this is how many years we're going to, produce X amount of income, and they base their value, or they base their sale price on that. And we should be allowed as assessors or as a town to value the property in the same way as any other commercial or residential property in town, which is based on what someone would purchase the property for, not, based on a discounted value.
Steve,
Madam President?
a motion to have a resolution in support of 5634 is also.
So
Oh,
this
no.
would not be
Deny
supporting. This would be
5634.
objecting.
Objection,
Denying.
objecting to it. Right.
Madam President,
Yes.
this bill is scheduled for hearing in the House Municipal Committee on Friday, the 12th. And I think it would be appropriate. There's a lot of push for this bill, by the way. And I think it'd be appropriate that if Mr. Di Pasquale's motion is approved, that the resolution be signed and gotten up to the General Assembly for that Friday hearing.
So it would be a resolution in objection to
Correct.
House Bill 5634.
Correct.
All righty. So we have a motion, and did we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. So once those are drawn up and ready for signature, I will make myself available to sign them, and we can get those to the right places. And Mr. Leadham, you have communicated with our representatives and senator about these two bills?
Yes, I had some discussion. I also sent a letter supporting the first bill we discussed when that went to the House to the chairman of the committee. So yes, I have communicated. It'd just be nice to have your support and agreement, I guess, on these topics. And I apologize for the last minute. These bills have been flying out like crazy, and there's a lot of them to weed through. So I wish I had more time for you.
Apology accepted, and no hard feelings. We're here to help you do your job as best you can. So next we have an abatement to the 2020 tax roll of $53.19.
Correct. Just a small abatement. This was just a tangible tax that should not have been sent out last year, in the 2020 tax year. So we need to abate that.
Make a motion to abate the 2020 tax roll in the amount of $53.19.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. And sadly, that was for Mike's Barber Shop, which is no longer there. It will be sadly missed. All right, finally, we have Public Works Director, discussion and action regarding bids received for painting of the exterior trim and windows at Government Center. I think you all received the email earlier today with those bids. There was quite a large space between the high bid and the low bid. Mr. Malik, I think
Madam President, I'm going to address that.
Okay.
You're correct. The difference between the lowest bid and the next lowest bid was just over $27,000. The low bid was from CertaPro of Southern New England. I have spoken to all of the references that they provided, and all of those references spoke very highly of the professionalism and the ability of the contractor to meet their contractual requirements. What I would ask tonight is that two things: that you direct Mr. Malik and I to meet with CertaPro to be sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what the anticipated scope is and what the costs are going to be. And assuming that we are in agreement with that, that you authorize the manager to execute a contract with CertaPro.
Okay, if in fact you find, is there any urgency to going to the second low bidder if you're not satisfied with the qualifications?
I should have included that in my request, that if in fact we weren't able to reach agreement with the lowest bidder, that we could move up the list to the second lowest bidder. Though I would suggest that in looking at what was submitted, the second lowest bidder did not submit a complete response to the RFP, so we would probably move to the third highest.
I have a question, Madam President.
Yes, go ahead.
Could he, and Tony's probably going to be the answer on this one. If we approve the lowest bidder pending review by the planner and the director of public works, if it doesn't work out, could we reject all bids and then they could negotiate with the bidders to see if they could get on the same page? $20,000 is a big difference in numbers.
That's an option under Title 45, Chapter 4, Section 55, Chapter 4, Section 4, rather. I'm sorry.
Okay, so how would we word that in the motion?
If the planner can't come to terms, that would have to come back to the council, and then you'd have to reject all the bids.
Okay, I'd rather just make a motion to approve the low bidder pending agreement between the planner and the director of DPW. If there's no agreement, then all bids come back to the council.
But should you make them, should the motion also say that if they're satisfied that they can authorize them to create the contract?
Yes, yeah, that was my intent. I might not have worded it correctly, but that was my intent.
All right.
All right, we have that motion and a second.
Yes.
All righty, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, go forth and get the building painted. And that's it, folks. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Joseph's Day for us Italians.
There you go.